Welcome, everyone, to Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. We're your hosts and co-founders of FantasyForesight.com, coming to you from Rambo Fixture Company Studios. I'm Ben.
And I'm Jay.
You ready to get rolling, Jay?
You know it. Let's do this.
All right, let's go. Today, we've got the running backs of the NFC South as of Monday, September 3rd. And I got to say, this is probably the most exciting position group in this division and maybe in this league.
Yeah, what a group we had to go over today. And first up, we have the Atlanta Falcons. We have Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman, the duo that has been there for several years now. They've been together. Both exciting players. Both a little bit of the injury bug from time to time.
Yep.
But Total Foresight has Devonta Freeman ranked as our RB13, a back-end RB1, high-end RB2. As a team, they have the 25th best strength of schedule for the running back position. That's not great.
Nope.
But they counter that with the third best offensive line. Now that is great. Yes.
Yeah, that helps. Having the third best offensive line definitely offsets that tougher strength of schedule. Vegas likes them to win around 9 or 10 games this year. His current ADP, he's being drafted as RB12, right around where we have him ranked, going from 18 to 20 in drafts. Going ahead of him, though, is Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. Going behind him is Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon. I gotta say, out of that group, I am sprinting to take Christian McCaffrey or Jordan Howard over Devonta Freeman or either of those other guys all day.
Yeah, I agree. Now, when you compare these two guys, in their rookie season, Tevin Coleman was kind of the one who got all the hype going into the season, picked up an injury, so Devonta got the opportunity. He finished that season as RB1.
Yeah.
So it was a monster year. Whoever took him as a dart throw early in the season or was able to scoop him up, it really paid off for him. But since then, he has gone from RB1 to RB7 to RB13. That's the wrong way you want to go in a trend.
Yeah, no doubt. When you start off as hot as he did unexpectedly, you understand that there's going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of hype around there.
Sure.
But since then, as the guy, he has had durability concerns, and his average finish and average points per game are both going in the wrong direction. And because of that, it just makes me a little leery around his price range. If you have to take him where he's going, I understand that. Yeah. If you want to take him where he's going, I understand that. But for me personally, I'd really much prefer to take him around like RB 15 to 18 as opposed to RB 12. And I don't know. Like I said, I feel a lot better about a couple of the guys going in front of and behind him than I do about him specifically this season.
Well, and when you have somebody who's had some durability issues, yeah, it's always better to get him with a little bit more value. It makes you feel better and sleep better at night. And he is going RB12 in drafts. Total Foresight has him ranked as RB13, so I think that value is dialed in right there. So I think he's appropriately priced and going where that valued running back goes in drafts this season. So I have no problem with the pricing. But like you said, I would just feel a lot better if I could get a little bit more value out of his positioning.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, if you're able to get a couple of really nice weeks out of him, maybe look to trade him for a Jordan Howard type if that's possible, or something like that before the durability concerns creep in there a little bit too much. But when you look at his teammate in this backfield, Tevin Coleman, this year, I get a little bit excited about him because this is a contract year for him. We do have some durability concerns with him, but we also have some durability concerns with Freeman. And sometimes some guys tend to play up a little bit in their contract year. And you mentioned how when Tevin Coleman came to this team, he was supposed to be the guy. Right. He was the one expected to be the workhorse. He was the one expected to be the face of this team's running game. And so you got to imagine that is going to sit with him a little bit the wrong way the entire time. And if this man gets an opportunity this year to really emphatically make a statement about, hey, I should be the guy for some other team, I think there is a little bit of something to that self-motivation, self-incentivization.
I completely agree because Devonta Freeman was paid. He's got to be there. He's got the money. I can't imagine that they're going to pay out that kind of dollars to two running backs on the same team. So Tevin Coleman is going to be elsewhere next season. So he's interviewing for every other team in the league this season.
And that's from the player perspective. Imagine from the team perspective. On the one hand, you've got this running back that you've made a long-term financial commitment to. On the other hand, you've got a guy that you know isn't going to be there next year. Which one do you really want to run into the ground? Do you want to run your long-term asset into the ground this year, or you want to start putting more tread on those tires next year? I think the answer is the latter. And I think if there's a year for Tevin Coleman to close the gap as far as workload goes with Devonta Freeman, this is it.
Right. And I mentioned for Devonta Freeman that he is going RB12 in drafts, and we have him ranked as RB13. You're going to love this. Tevin Coleman is going RB33 in drafts, and where does Total Foresight have him ranked? RB33. I mean, we've got both these guys dialed in, but I do agree with you that Tevin Coleman does present some value where he's going because of what we've discussed. Guys going right around him, Peyton Barber, Chris Thompson, behind him, AP, and then Sony Michel. And I like Tevin Coleman's value, to be honest with you. Chris Thompson coming off of injury. I don't know exactly when he's going to be back yet. Peyton Barber, look, everybody's making a lot of hype because Rojo hasn't produced, so Peyton's going to get the start to start this season. But I don't know what he's actually going to be as far as elite talent in this league is. And then the guys going behind him are either ancient or already hurt. So I like Tevin Coleman's upside.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And he has proven to be an RB2 over the past couple seasons, both in his fantasy finish and his average points per game. So we mentioned already that this team at the running back position has a 25th ranked strength of schedule. So if anything, that might mean schematically that this team is going to plan on passing more when it comes to their running backs. And I think that favors Tevin Coleman.
I completely agree.
So,
and somebody else who's going to see a lot of targets out of the backfield is Christian McCaffrey out of Carolina. This guy is currently going as RB10 in drafts. He's going 10 to 15 overall, which seems crazy to me. We have him ranked as our RB9.
Once again, right there.
In PPR, boy, it looks like he is going to just be loaded up with volume. And I mean, if he can make it through a season, I can't see any situation where he doesn't outpace those projections.
That's the thing about this guy, is just the way that he's built and the way that his game is set up. I have less injury concerns about him than I do about almost any running back. I really like his style, and I don't know. I just have so much confidence in this guy this year. And you mentioned that he's going 10 to 15. The guys going in front of him are Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt. The guys going behind him are Dalvin Cook and Devonta Freeman. Other than Kareem Hunt, there's nobody else I'm even thinking twice about. I'm taking CMC in that group at the top all day.
Completely agree. The O-line is a little bit of a worry, ranked 28th. Their strength of schedule is middle of the road. Vegas has them winning under 8 games. But look, he's a PPR stud. He'll run the ball. He'll catch out of the backfield. He's going to do it all. I think I look at that offense and I see a little bit of a lack of weapons. They're going to rely on a young receiver to move the ball. They have a tight end who contemplated retirement. Still could be good, but maybe not the same as he was. There's just a lack of weapons, and there's one giant weapon that they have, and you know he's going to get usage.
Absolutely. He finished his PPR's RB10 last season, and he really, I think, was underutilized a lot.
Right.
He was on the field a lot, but not used a lot. So I don't know if it was a decoy or a game flow thing or what, but this guy had a very, very strong fantasy finish last year, despite not having his talents maximized. I don't think that's going to be an issue in Norv Turner's offense. I am not running scared about CJ Anderson whatsoever. I think that it's just like Jonathan Stewart. And as far as the goal line work goes, Cam vultures that anyways. So I just really look at the bulk of Christian McCaffrey's value coming out of the passing game, and he is as good of a pass catcher at the running back position in the NFL.
Yeah, bottom line, he was an RB1 last season. He's going to get more volume this season, so he's going to be an RB1 this season, and he's somebody that you can expect great things from. He's appropriately priced. There might even be a little bit of value where he's going because he's going behind some guys that you would take him in front of. So I think pricing's perfect. There's some value there, and he's going to be great. Real quick on CJ Anderson. I mean, he did put up 1,000 yards last season before getting injured. So I do think he's a very capable backup, and you know, there is some value there if CMC goes down. and I'm sure he's going to spell him and maybe get some goal line work or some, short yardage work. But like you said, you don't want to overpay. There is some value there, but I think that's somebody where you just wait for him on the waiver wire should something happen, and you just keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that he had an impressive season last year, but we have a bit of a sample size for him, and it is really up and down. I mean, last year he finished as RB 27. Year before that, 46. Year before that, 31. Year before that, 10.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Ben, look, I don't know if he presents standalone value or consistent production for you on a fantasy team this season, but should something happen to CMC and running backs, there's always things that happen. I don't expect it for CMC this year, but if Christian McCaffrey does get injured, then CJ Anderson does appear to be the next man up and would present value at that point.
and you're right. I think my biggest point about CJ Anderson is that he is the primary reason people use for being concerned about Christian McCaffrey's upside. And I'm just not that concerned about that limiting him. So my only point is that I think that Christian McCaffrey has that top 5 running back potential this year. And he's almost as exciting as our next guy out of New Orleans, my guy, Alvin Kamara.
Ben's got a tissue box sitting next to him for this one.
Wow. You went there. Wow.
Alvin Kamara is our TF RB3. He is the 3rd ranked running back in Total Foresight. Last year, only Gurley, Bell, and Zeke had more fantasy points per game than Alvin Kamara. He is a stud. He is dynamic. Look, he's just fun to watch. He makes big plays out of nothing. I'm excited to see what he's going to do this season when he's going to be more heavily involved from the start. Last season, he came on as the season progressed. He ended up being a star. He had 120 attempts for 728 yards and 8 touchdowns. We've talked about guys who had less than that for the entire season being the RB1 on their team, and he had 8 in the second half, basically, of the season as a breakout star. So, I mean, the sky's the limit. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And that's the other thing. People need to remember that going into the season, he was 3rd on the depth chart behind Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until like week 6 or 7 that he even really started to get regular uses on a steady basis. And then once that happened, and once it settled into a nice defined divided backfield where Mark Ingram has his set role, Kamara has his set role, and both are used in a hybrid type fashion because Mark can catch and Alvin can run, it just makes their offense almost impossible to predict and even harder to stop.
Yeah, and we always bring this back to value. Now, he's going as RB5 in drafts. He's going 5 to 7 overall because of the premium on running backs, which we've discussed a lot. The guys going in front of him are David Johnson and Saquon Barkley. The guys going on average behind him are Ezekiel Elliott and Melvin Gordon. Now, I told you that he's going RB5 in drafts. Total Foresight has him ranked as RB3, so I think there is value there based on what we are seeing. So, of those guys, Ben, I'm taking Alvin all day over Saquon.
Oh, yeah.
Zeke, that's a debate for me. I mean, I would hear you if you're going to take Zeke over Alvin. I mean, I have no problem with that. But like I said, going RB5, you have to examine these so closely at the top of the draft because it means everything. So I think based on the fact that he's going RB5, we have him listed as TF3. I think there's value where he's going. I think that's a great buy.
No, you're absolutely right. He is somebody that they scheme into targets. They targeted him 100 times in his limited sample size last year, and he had an astounding 81% catch rate. That's a combination of great schematics, his catching ability, and Drew Brees' accuracy. None of that is going to change this year. And they used the pass to their running back as an extension of the run at times. And I don't know. I think a lot of the knock on this guy this year is that he was hyper efficient and there's no way that he can sustain those type of yards per touch type of efficiency numbers. I don't think he has to because he wasn't involved for a third of the season and because he's going to be the primary guy for the first 4 weeks and a 50-50 guy for the 12 weeks after that in your fantasy season. So I think whatever regression he has in an efficiency side is going to be more than made up for on a volume side.
Yeah, he led all wide receivers and tight ends and running backs in fantasy points per snap last season. He was the most efficient player in a skill position on the field in the NFL.
Yeah, efficient, explosive, whatever you want to call it. In only 202 total touches, he was running back 3 last year.
Yeah.
What will this guy do if he stays healthy all 16 games and not that he had any injury problems, but I'm just saying that health is never taken for granted. If he is able to last for 16 games and be used on a regular basis from day one, this guy has RB1 in the whole NFL potential, period.
I completely agree. And I think my only worry is he's going to see the lion's share of the volume those first 4 weeks that Mark Ingram is suspended. And you just hope that with that increased volume size, which we haven't seen him endure yet in his career, that he'll make it through unscathed. Now, to counter that argument, I think he is shifty enough to where he can avoid taking those hard hits from guys.
He's strong, man. He is strong.
Yeah, so I think I worry less about his durability than I do a lot of other players. So I think the sky is the limit. Now, when Mark Ingram comes back, a lot of people could see that as being a knock. I don't think so. I'm with you. I think it saves him some.
Yes.
He's going to be efficient when he gets the ball. I think the amount of volume he gets is going to be just like it was the second half of last season. So he's going to have that for a full season plus. And I think that's fantastic. I'm going to let you touch on Mark Ingram, though.
Well, real quick before we move to Mark Ingram, we've made a point in previous podcasts about the sweet spot when it comes to 2 defined running back roles, and I agree with you wholeheartedly about the primary goal for him is to make it out of the first 4 weeks completely unscathed and healthy. If he can do that, and Mark Ingram can come back in and carry half of this load for him, they are going to both optimize their efficiency levels and be just as explosive and exciting as they were last year. And I say they because people disrespect Mark Ingram. Alvin Kamara was very exciting last year, but Mark Ingram has been doing this for years. People act like last year was a fluke. That's wrong. Over the past 4 years, this guy has gotten better and better every season. Let's go back to 4 years ago. He finishes his PPR RB 15. Then 3 years ago, 11. 2 years ago, 8. Last year, 6. You see a trend there? This guy is just getting better and better. He keeps getting overlooked. He keeps getting disrespected. And he is going 43 to 48 in drafts as RB22, despite his 4-game suspension. He's not injured. This was a suspension. And he's going to come back fresh. And guys that are going ahead of him are Lamar Miller and Derrick Henry. Guys going behind him are Jay Ajayi and Marshawn Lynch. I want Mark Ingram over all of those guys all day because not one of them have returned RB1 numbers for each of the past 4 seasons.
No, and I'll be honest, I am probably in the camp that has disrespected Mark Ingram over the past few years, but I can't argue with his actual production. It just annoys the crap out of me that he's been as productive as he has been. There were years ago where he burnt me. I traded for him late in the season. I think the first game I had him, he went down with injury, and after that, it lingers with you, and I know you have to take emotion out of it, and we've discussed that. And looking at his numbers, he is a legit running back in this league and a top fantasy producer, and yes, he's suspended 4 games, but he is going to present tremendous value when he comes back.
And I don't think he's in for a slow start. I think he's going to come out like a bolt of lightning, and people are already going to have 4 weeks of wear and tear on their bodies, and he's going to be that much fresher. And honestly, at that point, Kamara's probably going to be a little tired, and maybe in week 5, heading into that bye week, they really feature Mark Ingram, and that's something to watch for. We don't like to take this off topic too much, but in our league, I took this guy at 46 overall because I already had Kamara. I think he is a great standalone value, but he's also an outstanding handcuff reinforcement to Kamara in case anything happens to him. So I just think that the value for him this year was insane. I think this offense is outstanding. And even if there is some touchdown regression on the rushing side, all of the rushing TDs are primarily, I believe, going to go through Mark Ingram, and Kamara is going to make his hay in the passing game.
Yep. I completely agree. I can't argue with any of that. Now, Boston Scott won the 3rd-ranked duties on this team. When they're both healthy, he's probably not going to present all that much value, but for the first 4 weeks, he is going to be the number 2 guy in this offense. If you are desperate for a running back, he could present you some value there and maybe surprise a little bit. I mean, he's going free. He's not being drafted. They do have the 8th-ranked offensive line in this offense, so he could present some spot duty if you have somebody who's gone down with injury, if you have Jerick McKinnon and can't find anybody else if the waiver wire's thin. He may not be a bad ad to start the season.
No, that's a great point, and you make a really nice, smooth transition from the super exciting Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram to soften the blow a little bit with Mr. Scott, and now we go even a little bit farther down the excitement ladder to Tampa Bay.
Oh boy. This
Yeah.
offense, the backfield in this offense has been a quandary for years. It
Yep.
just seems like it's always next man up and everybody's going out to grab whoever's going to start in this offense. And they have produced, but whoever it is that's starting just seems to always be changing, whether due to injury or what have you. So they draft Ronald Jones. He has done absolutely nothing in the preseason.
Which is so surprising.
It really is. I mean, it's been very disappointing. He came in with so much hype. I think a lot of people had him as one of the top running back prospects in the league this season. We all thought he was going to get the number one duties either by the end of the preseason or very early into the season, but boy, just a very poor preseason. He averaged less than a yard per carry, which, I mean, that's rough, man. He was going against some defenses with a lot of backups in there, still couldn't produce. A lot of people want to blame it on the offensive line, which ranks 24th, but that's not going to change going into the season. So now you have Peyton Barber, who apparently is going to get the start at the beginning of the season, but do you get excited about drafting Peyton Barber?
No, he's going 67 to 72. I'm staying away from him and any back out of this backfield all day, especially at that point. I think this backfield's only hope is if Ronald Jones finds his way, because I think if it's me, he's going Ronald Jones 107 to 112. If he falls even a little bit farther than that, maybe at that point I take him as a stash. And here's why. USC is a very respected college when it comes to NFL talent and the running back position. Ronald Jones was the first USC running back to have back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons since Lendale White. In 3 seasons, he had 591 attempts for over 3,600 yards and 39 touchdowns at an average rate of 6.1 yards a carry. That is not a fluke. We had a very large sample size of him at college. I don't know what's going on with him right now. I don't think that the NFL preseason is such a big jump for what he saw at USC. I really don't know what's happening, but I just have to hope that he's going to figure it out. I prefer to go elsewhere, but if at that point in your draft you're looking for a speculative running back and other guys are not available, maybe you go there. But I'll be honest, he's got James White and Bilal Powell going in front of him and behind him, and I'll take that standalone guaranteed value from the start over him all day.
Ben, 4 weeks ago, this guy was going in the 40s in drafts.
Yeah,
now he's going
happy.
107 to 112. We talked about how annoyed we were with Jordan Howard's ascension on the draft boards. This guy is tumbling. So now he presents a ton of value. Like you said, he has some upside. He's going to get an opportunity. He is a rookie. He is an unknown quantity, even though he hasn't shown in the preseason. But there is a ton of value now there.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we are a very overreacting bunch in fantasy land.
Definitely.
And the hype was probably too high to start. The pendulum has probably swung too far now. And I do like him as a speculative ad for later in the season. You've got to have the strength everywhere else on your team to have the luxury of stashing anybody at this point in your season. But you could have worse stashes. I'm just going to wait and see as far as this guy's concerned and try and load up my backfield with teams I have a lot more confidence in when you take a look at the season-long prospects.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And you'd have to imagine, especially for the beginning of the season, while Jameis is out, defenses are going to be loading this box and having the quarterback win games. And that scares me. So I understand the desire to take Peyton Barber if he's going to be the RB1. People are looking for touches and carries, but I don't know if Peyton Barber is going to be somebody that I can trust long-term. And I don't know if he's going to present any trade value at any point this season. Maybe a little bit to start, but that's not a long-term buy for me. So I'm not going to be taking him where he's going in drafts, which is 67 to 72. That just, he doesn't present value to me as a starter, really, and he doesn't present a value to me as a long-term trade option. So I'm staying away from there. If anything, I'm going to go Rojo later in drafts as a bench stash with the hopes that he does turn it on and get back to what he is.
You're right. Now, I will say I was surprised to realize that Rojo didn't have that many receptions in college. And I will say that with all the points you made about the game flow and the offensive line and things of that nature for this team, I really think that the value at the running back position as the year goes on is probably going to be most identifiable with whoever ends up being their passing down back. Because, like you said, the running back holes are not going to be there in their rushing game so much. But you still have to utilize your running backs even when that's the case. And how do you do that? You do that through getting them involved in the passing game.
Yeah, and I think we can leave it with this. I think we're both down on this team and this offense. After what we saw last season, you have the concerns at quarterback, you have the concerns at strength of schedule and offensive line. It's just a lot that screams stay away.
No, you're absolutely right, and that'll do it for the running backs of the NFC South. Next up, we've got the wide receivers and the tight ends of the NFC South for our last episode leading up to the NFL season opener on Thursday, September 6th, between the Eagles and the Falcons. Can't wait for the season, can't wait for the last episode, so stay tuned.
And that wraps up this episode of Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. Don't forget, you can find us at fantasyforesight.com.
And you can use the links at the bottom of the page to find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at ForesightBen, at ForesightJ, and at Total Foresight. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
You already found this podcast, but you can find it on Google Play and iTunes, and you can find our app in the App Store.
All right, that does it for us. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks a lot, and have a great night.